Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Pastor Jim, Grandpa Jim. Um, I have a message about the Sabbath day. It's the Sabbath day is for everyone, is the title of it. And I'm going to read that to you after I read the creation event. In Genesis 2 through 3, uh, by the seventh day, Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. So this is not an option. This is the Creator rested, and he didn't really need the rest, but he set us an example. And I have a scripture that I want to read right now in Isaiah that explains who it's for. Isaiah 56, 1 through 7. Thus says Yahweh, preserve justice and do righteousness, for my salvation is about to come, and my righteousness is to be revealed. How blessed is the man who does this, and the Son of Man who takes hold of it, who keeps from profaning the Sabbath day, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. No, let not the foreigner, that's Gentiles, that's everybody, who has joined himself to Yahweh say, Yahweh will surely separate me from his people. Nor let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree, for thus says Yahweh. To the eunuch who keeps my Sabbaths and chooses what pleases me, and holds fast to my covenant, to them I will give in my house and within my walls a memorial, and a name better than that of the sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name which will not be cut off. I will give it to them. As the foreigner who joins himself to Yahweh to minister to him and to love the name of Yahweh and to be his servants, everyone who keeps them from profaning the Sabbath and holds fast my covenant. See, that's not just for the Jews only. Okay, I've got a bunch of scriptures starting in Exodus 16, 22 through 30. Now on the sixth day they gathered twice as much bread for 2 omers. This is the manna that was given. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, then he said to them, this is what Yahweh meant. Tomorrow is a Sabbath observance, a holy Sabbath to Yahweh. Bake what you will bake and boil what you will boil, and that is left over put aside to be kept until morning. So they put it aside until morning, as Moses had ordered, and it did not foul, nor was there any worm in it. And Moses said, eat today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none. We're not to do any work on the Sabbath day, and this was counted work, gathering it and then cooking it. Verse 27 of Exodus 16. It came to pass on the seventh day that some of the people went out and gathered, but they found none. And then Yahweh said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? See, Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. Remember this, Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work. You nor your sons, nor your daughters, your male or your female servants, or your cattle, or the sojourner who stays with you. In 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. When Yahweh makes something holy, you can't make it unholy. I mean, you can break it, but you can't change it. Exodus 31:12 through 17. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "But as for you, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, you shall surely observe my Sabbaths." That's plural, and there are weekly Sabbaths, and then there's yearly Sabbaths, but that's a different subject. For this is a sign between me and you and your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. It's a sign. There's other people that have their mark of a different day, but this is Yahweh's mark or his sign that we belong to him. Therefore you are to observe the Sabbath day, and that's the seventh-day Sabbath now, who sanctifies you. Therefore you are to observe the Sabbath, for it is holy to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day there is a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely be put to death. So the sons of Israel shall observe the Sabbath to celebrate the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he rested from all his labor which he finished. Now that's the third time that he's stated that. Do you think that's important? This is, Yahweh chose Israel not because they were greater in number or that they were more special than anyone else, but he chose Abraham and Abraham's seed, and Israel were descendants from Abraham. And so if you want to obey Yahweh, you become a spiritual Israelite. Exodus 35:1-3. When Moses assembled all the congregation of the sons of Israel and said to them, "These are the sayings that Yahweh has commanded you to do. For 6 days work may be done, but on the seventh day whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall not kindle a fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day." For just as the new heavens and the new earth which I make will endure before me, declares Yahweh, so your offspring and your name will endure. And and it shall be from new moon to new moon, from Sabbath to Sabbath, all mankind will come to bow down before me, says Yahweh. This is going to be during the millennium that everybody will do that. Not everybody does it today, even though that's the command. And if you want to be on the right side of Yahweh, you will do that also. In Matthew 5:17 through 19, we're in the New Testament now. Actually, there really shouldn't be any dividing line. It should be all one book. The Bible is not two parts, it's all one part. And there were no scriptures when the disciples in the New Testament, because the disciples and Yeshua were the ones that formed the scriptures for the New Testament from the Torah, from the Old Testament. Matthew 5:17 through 19 says, do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish it, but to fulfill it. Fulfill means to keep, to fill up, not to do away with. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. All the disciples, Joshua, and everybody kept it, as you'll see in these scriptures. Matthew 12:9 through 13. Departing from there, speaking of Yeshua now, he went into the synagogue, and a man was there whose hand was withered, and they questioned Joshua, asking, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to them, what man is there among you who has a sheep, and if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath day, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? And how much more valuable than is a man than a sheep? So then it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. Then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and it was restored to normal, like the other. He was intentionally breaking the commandments of the Pharisees, because they had added so many commandments that it was a burden. And he was lifting that burden from off of the Sabbath day. They went into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath day, he entered the synagogue, speaking of Yeshua again, and began to teach. They were amazed at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one having authority and not as the scribes. Mark 2:23 through 28. And it happened that he was passing through the grain fields, this is still speaking of Yeshua, on the Sabbath, and the disciples began to make their way along while picking the heads of grain. The Pharisees were saying to him, look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? And he said to them, have you never read what David did when he was in need, and he and his companions became hungry, how he entered the house of Elohim in the time of Abiathar the high priest, and ate the showbread, which is consecrated bread, it says here, which is not lawful for anyone to eat except the priest. And he also gave to those who were with him. Joshua said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And the Son of Man is master even of the Sabbath. So he can determine what is right and what's wrong on the Sabbath day. And what they were doing was not all right. Luke 4:16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as was his custom, he entered a synagogue on the Sabbath and stood up to read. People have said he changed it, but there's no indication in the scripture that he changed it to Sunday. These are all showing what he did. He says, follow me. Luke 14:1-6. It happened that when he went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, they were watching him closely, and there in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. And Joshua answered and spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? But they kept silent. And he took hold of the man and healed him and sent him away. And he said to them, which one of you have a son or an ox to fall into a well, will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day? And they could not reply to him. They had stringent laws. They went into captivity for breaking the Sabbath day, but they went overboard in their interpretation of how to keep the Sabbath day. In Luke 23:50-56, and a man named Joseph was a member of the council, a good and righteous man. He had not consented to their plan and action. A man from Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who was waiting for the kingdom of Elohim. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Joshua. This is after he was crucified. And he took it down and wrapped it in a linen cloth and laid him in the tomb, cut into the rock, where no one had ever lain. It was the preparation day. The Sabbath was about to begin. The 6th day is the preparation day for the Sabbath, so you can get all your ducks in a row, as you might call it, so that you can keep the Sabbath day. And on the Sabbath day rested according to the commandment. In Acts 13:13-14 and 42-44. Now Paul and his companions put out to sea from Paphos and came to Perga, Pamphylia, but John left them and returned to Jerusalem. But going on from Perga, they arrived in Pisidium, Antioch, on the Sabbath day, and they went into the synagogue and sat down. After reading of the law and the prophets, the synagogue officials sent to them, saying, brethren, if you have any word of exhortation to the people, say it. And as Paul and Barnabas were going out, the people kept begging that these things might be spoken to them the next Sabbath. Now when the meeting of the synagogue had broken up, many of the Jews and of the Elohim, fearing proselytes, followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, were urging them to continue in the grace of Elohim. The next Sabbath, nearly the whole city assembled to hear the word of Yahweh. Acts 15:19-21. Therefore it is my judgment that we do not trouble those who are turning to Elohim. This is a gathering of the leaders in Jerusalem to decide what the Gentiles should do when they came in to the faith. And this is just a thumbnail sketch of what they were to do. If you'll notice that they were to go to the Torah and to the synagogue and learn the other stuff. It is my judgment that, and I think this is James speaking, Yeshua's brother, he was head elder in Jerusalem. Therefore it is my judgment that we do not trouble those who are turning to Elohim from among the Gentiles, but that we write to them that they abstain from things contaminated by idols, and from fornication, and from that which is strangled, and from blood. For Moses from ancient generations has in every city those who preach him, since he is read in the synagogue on every Sabbath. What they were saying here is that the Torah uh, spells out how to keep the commandments. It's pretty lengthy, and you can't get it in one sitting. And so he was advising them to keep going to the synagogue, the Gentiles, so that they could learn the rest of what to do. This other was just to get them started. Acts 16, 11 through 13. So putting out to sea, now this is Paul, Shaul in Hebrew, um, from Troas, we ran a straight course to some of the race, and on the day following in Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is a leading city of the district of Macedonia, a Roman colony. And we were staying in this city for some days, and on the Sabbath day we went outside the gate to a river where we were supposing that there would be a place of prayer, and we sat down and began speaking to the women who had assembled. These are just examples of what Paul did on the Sabbath day. It's not a complete teaching. It's just showing what he did on the Sabbath day, and the rest of the apostles. Acts 17, 1 through 2. Now when they had traveled through Amphipolis, they came to Thessalonica, where there was a synagogue of the Jews, and according to Paul's custom, he went to them, and for 3 Sabbaths reasoned with them from the Scriptures. In Acts 18, 1 through 4, after these things he left Athens and went to Corinth. These are all Gentile areas. Paul was designated as the apostle to the Gentiles. And after his countrymen turned their back on him, he turned to the Gentiles. So it was this custom, and he went into the Sabbath day to reason from the Scriptures. In Acts 18, 1 through 4, after these things he left Athens and went to Corinth, and he found a Jew named Aquila, and a native of Pontus, having recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla. Because Claudius had commanded all the Jews to leave Rome, he came to them, and because he was of the same trade, he stayed with them, and they worked together, for by trade they were tent makers. And he was he was a tent maker with them, in other words. Luke 20, 50 through 56. A man named Joseph was a member of the council and a good, righteous man, and considered their plan in action. A man of Arimathea, city of the Jews, who was waiting for the kingdom of Elpine. I think I already read this one to you. They were going to prepare Joshua's body for burial. In Colossians 2:16, let's see, I'm going to skip over that. I guess that pretty well concludes the Sabbath. I'll go ahead and read it to you. It's Colossians 2:16. Therefore, no one is to act as your judge in regard to food or drink on the Sabbath, in respect to festivals or new moons or a Sabbath day, things which are mere shadows of what is to come, but the abstinence belongs to Messiah. People use this scripture to try to prove the Sabbath was done away with, but what we're not to let them judge us in is in us keeping the Sabbath day. All right, now that pretty well concludes scriptures on this. I have two booklets I would like to recommend to you. It's you can find them at yrm.org. That's Yahweh's Restoration Ministry, but yrm.org. How to honor the Sabbath day. And then there's another one. Don't neglect the third commandment. That's the Sabbath day commandment. And also, I want to recommend to you, there's a series, 11-part series, on the seventh day, and it's by Hal Holbrook. It's on YouTube, and it's the seventh day Sabbath, and it goes through history and shows how long the Sabbath was kept and many of the ones that kept it. So that's my conclusion of this, and so I wish you Shabbat Shalom, and hope you will take seriously about keeping the Sabbath day. This is Grandpa Jim signing off, and this will be posted on YouTube. Yahweh bless.